I'm Joshua Bardwell, and you're going to learn something today. And not only are you going to learn something today, but hopefully my guest today is going to learn something too. I'm here with Kevin Provost doing a one-on-one troubleshoot. This is something I like to do every so often. I should do it more often, but I don't. Anyway, I'm here because Kevin had a problem, and instead of answering his questions over chat, I was like, hey, dude, let's just get on the phone. So, Kevin, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure talking to you. And you are, in fact, I should say, you're one of my patrons. So thank you also for being my patron and supporting me.
Oh, absolutely. Ever since I found the hobby, your videos were first on all my searches, so I've been following you since I've got into the hobby here.
Okay, enough. We'll make my head too big. I also can't help but notice that you have the same. You have the same chair that I do, don't you?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. This video not sponsored by GT Racing.
The
This is just a
cheapest chair
coincidence.
on Amazon.
Okay. So what is the problem that I can't remember what you told me, but tell
Well,
everybody
my
what's the
problem
problem that we're here to solve?
is I bought a brand new Eachine trash can. I'll move over the camera here.
Okay.
And this trash can came out of the box and set up on Betaflight fine. Um, and then after getting a test flight in, I would lose RX signal, which I found out could be from D16 mode. Like I said, I'm new, so all of these terms are pretty new to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried switching that to D8 mode, and no real change. But this was all like in the first 10, 20 minutes of test flight, and
Mm-hmm.
my battery started to overheat. Uh,
Ooh.
I would hear the noise like when you first plug in the battery of the startup noise. I would hear that over and over again. And then it would kind of sound wonky, like you would expect something with a low battery, like if you ever heard a birthday
Yeah.
card with a
All
low battery.
digital and
Yeah.
yeah.
So something
So
was clearly wrong, and I disconnected. The battery was super duper hot and puffy, and
wow.
tested on the multimeter. It was had a short across the terminals and no voltage,
Wow.
and
So
that'd be this
can
battery right here.
we spin the camera back to you for a
Sure.
second?
Hmm.
Yeah, okay. So so there's a couple things that we've mentioned here. The first is that there is an issue with the Eachine trash can. It's not actually the trash can specifically, but it's the Crazy Bee flight controller and Beta Flight. These two things together, I don't know whose fault it is, but they have a bug where the quadcopter will literally just lock up mid-flight. Like it's not even like a fail safe. Literally, just the OSD freezes the whole thing, and you just have to power cycle it.
Hmm.
And you can fix that as you did by changing from D16 to D8 mode, or you can actually. I actually learned this after I made a video talking about doing that. You can actually just go into the configuration tab and turn telemetry off. So if you prefer to use D16 mode, you can go back and use D16 mode. Just turn telemetry off. But you've got bigger problems,
Right.
and the biggest problem I think that you mentioned is that you had a problem with the battery. So you said you had a short across the terminals of the battery.
Correct.
How did you measure that?
I measured it with a multimeter on the continuity setting. I've got a digital multimeter here, just
Hmm.
a cheap one off Amazon.
So I'm not sure how much faith we should put in that because when you measure continuity, what the multimeter is going to do is it's going to push a very, very weak current from one probe. And if that current or voltage is detected at the other probe, then it says continuity's there. And the problem is that when you have an energized, you're not supposed to do continuity measurements on an energized circuit because they may produce inconsistent results. I don't know. I've never done a continuity measurement on a battery, but I'm wondering if the battery voltage, because if the battery had a short circuit, like if you think about it, if there was a short somewhere in the battery between the positive and the negative, what would the battery do? What would the voltage do?
The voltage, I'm not exactly sure, but
Right.
this voltage on this particular battery went to zero point 0.0.
That is what it would do. That's the right answer. If there's a short circuit between the terminals, what happens is that current can flow, right? Anytime there's continuity, current can flow, and current will flow from the positive to the negative until the voltage is at zero and the battery will die. So the fact that the battery's at 0 volts maybe suggests that your test was correct and the battery was defective. So I
The
wonder though. I'm gonna do this just out of curiosity because I've
Okay.
never done it. I'm gonna test continuity here, and I may destroy my multimeter or hopefully not start a fire, but let's find out what happens together when we... I'm a little nervous. Maybe I should do it with a smoke stopper. No, because the smoke stopper would break the continuity function because it has resistance. All right, live dangerously. Here we go. Oh. Well, yeah, it gets a... I'm not going to do it too many times. It gets a little beep, almost as if it was a capacitor. Mm-hmm. It gets a little beep, but then it stops. So, okay. I don't know if that's good or bad, but now we know.
I have the luxury of flying this on a 1S, so these are like $3 batteries.
Yeah.
So I'm not super duper worried. And I tested a couple others, and I did not get a beep on the batteries that haven't failed yet.
So what we've got is a defective battery at this point, right? Well, the battery got super puffy.
That was my first thought. So, like I said, these are $3 batteries, so I just kind of threw another one on the quad.
Okay.
And I got the same results. And then I threw a third one on there, and I got the same results.
So the batteries are good. The batteries hold voltage. Like if you charge them and leave them overnight, they're still basically charged up the next day.
Right.
Okay. You've tested that?
I haven't tested it since my initial problems, but I can test the voltage right now.
Yeah, let's just check. I mean, that's one of the basic checks for a healthy battery is if it holds voltage overnight. If you charge a pack and then the next morning one of the cells is like at 3.9 volts instead of 4.2, you're like, oh, that's not good. They may drop a few tenths of a volt, but they shouldn't drop very much.
Yeah, this one that hasn't failed is holding voltage.
Okay.
Like I said, I've been doing a little test flight, so it's not at full charge, but it's at 3.95 volts.
Sure.
This failed one, see, that's the problem. I have 10 of them. They all look the same.
So is your hypothesis that the quad is in some way causing the batteries to fail?
Yes, I think this one's killing my batteries.
That's pretty weird. I mean, like, a quadcopter can kill batteries just by over discharging them. If you discharge them lower than 3.0 volts, they'll die. But it's hard to imagine about the quad could cause the battery to have an internal short. Because, like, the battery's leads are soldered to the tabs on the cells. It's a pretty... Like, you could over-discharge. Here's the thing. It's hard to imagine that the battery would be capable of discharging enough current. Like, the worst thing you could do to a battery is short-circuit the leads, right? Mm-hmm. But generally, the cells themselves will not output enough current to melt the solder joints.
Right.
Like, even if you dead short them. Now, you never know. With a crappy battery, maybe. But generally, the cells will destroy themselves, get hot, maybe light on fire. But the solder joints themselves, how could you get this? And to get a short circuit, you would not only need to disconnect one of the wires, but then somehow, like, make them touch. Mm-hmm. I wonder if you were to, like, work the end of those batteries off, one of the dead ones, so that we could see the internals, what would we see?
I'd be happy to do that. I'd also be happy to put another one on the quad and try to kill it if you want.
Sure, yeah.
I'd also, I'm open to...
Yeah, because that little plastic shroud is just glued on there. Why don't you turn the camera around now so we can see a little closer? I just knew we were going to talk for a couple minutes. I didn't want to stare at the trash can while we were doing it.
All right.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, very nice. Oh, you got your little microscope too. That's really cool. I
could switch to that for.
That's really cool.
Close-up shots.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I think we're fine. This is the dead one right here.
Oh no, they're race day quads. So look, seeing that they're race day quads batteries, I hate to make promises for anybody else, but race day quads customer support is so crazy. Did you buy the trash can there too?
I did not. I think the only place I had on stock was Banggood, and they're not super supportive.
No, but race day quads, I got to tell you, if you like I always encourage people to reach out to support. If you reach out to race day quad support and you just tell them the story, here's what I did. I plugged it in, I flew a pack, then it was dead shorted. There's a chance that they'll just go, screw it, yeah, send them a couple more. And I
did contact them. Sorry to interrupt, but
yeah, no, go ahead.
I did contact them, and I told them the story, and I explained to them that this happened to 3 batteries in a row, so I doubt by the probability, I doubt I was sent a whole batch, but it could have happened of bad batteries, Mm-hmm. So I told them, I'm like, I honestly don't believe I have a bad battery, but I'm gonna reach out to Banggood and Eachine uh, Eachine redirected me to Banggood. So
Yeah.
basically,
Yeah. No, you're pretty much out of luck. I mean, here's the thing: if you're willing to argue hard enough with Banggood, then eventually they'll give you something. They'll like give you store credit.
hmm
But what I always say to people is,
but
like people always want to say, oh, I don't think it's don't jump to conclusions. Let
right,
the tech support guy make the conclusions. Describe the facts. Because if you call them up and say, I'm pretty sure the quad broke the batteries, then they'll be like, yeah, okay, well, you're probably right, dude. See you
hmm
later.
right.
You know.
From a
But if you,
businessman's point, that makes sense.
yeah, if you say, look, here's what happened. What do you think? Sometimes they'll just throw you a bone. You never
But then
know.
also, I'm worried. They send me a couple batteries and then they get ruined because possibly it is the quad.
So yeah, so we do want to figure it out. You know. So let's take off the let's pry off
The shroud on
this little
this.
thing. Yeah, see if we can get that off and see if we can see any, like, is it internally that it's shorted somehow, or is it like I can't even imagine.
Just kind of bent that. That came off fairly easily.
Mm-hmm.
Never disassembled one of these before, so.
Yeah. Yeah, there's just a little bit of like white
Oh,
adhesive
there.
holding the
There's
shroud on, and then there's just like,
there's the leads.
yeah, I can't. Yeah, there
Oh,
you go.
sorry, I've got the.
Yeah, so what do we got here? We've got the white adhesive there, and we got the leads. Do the leads look like they're soldered to the tabs? Does it look like they're intact?
Well, there's like a little board right there, a little
Yeah.
black board.
Oh, that's
and
nice.
it's covered in adhesive, so I can't really inspect the
Has it?
solder
It
joint
looks like. Is there a wire connecting the board to the tabs, or are the tabs soldered direct to the board?
there. Actually, there's a metal tab that's connected.
So I'm trying to see how this circuit board is connected to the tabs of the actual cell itself, or if somehow maybe it has ripped off, or if there's a short circuit inside the board. Does it seem to be connected to the tabs of the cell?
Yes, it looks like there's metal tabs, and then there's a little short lead
Okay.
soldered onto each tab.
Here's what let's do. Let's do this. Is this a dead one? It's at 0 volts?
Yes,
Will you cut the metal tabs so that the board comes separate from the cell?
sure.
If you were to do this on a charged battery, you would short the tabs and you would get some sparks. So the only reason we're doing this is because we know that the battery is completely dead. I wonder if inside the circuit board there has been some kind of a short, and that's resulted in a defect of some kind.
Flathead, try to just scrape off some of this adhesive.
And what I want to make sure is that any residual, like tabs or whatever, are not short circuiting. And I want to test this for a short circuit, you see,
Right,
and see if this is where the short circuit is in the battery.
like the board is.
Yeah, because if you think about the structure of a lipo cell, you've got the anode and the cathode and the electrolyte, and that I say that as if, of course, everyone knows that, but that's really the extent of my knowledge. But like, how do you get a dead short on a lipo cell? I think that's pretty difficult unless you just drive a nail through it. So
Okay.
if there is a short here, I wonder if it's in this terminal sort of assembly. Can we
This
test that?
this block here is actually not a board. It's just a plastic divider, probably just to
Mhm.
keep the positive and negative from touching.
Gotcha.
There's no circuitry on it.
Okay, that makes more sense then. So do we have any kind of short circuit here, like between these prongs? I mean, I guess we couldn't know for sure that you didn't do it when you took it
And ripping
apart.
it off.
Yeah. Like, how could we get a short? So I don't think I have like, hang on. This is a dead battery, and I'm gonna just measure it at 0 volts. I'm just gonna confirm it's at 0 volts. So this is a dead battery. Oh, it's at 4 volts. Well, that's not nothing. But like, you shouldn't have continuity. Oh, maybe you should. Wow. Well, I learned something today. How is that? How is that? Why does it have continuity? Anyone out there who knows why a dead battery would measure continuity, please let me know. It seems like the cells should have enough resistance, even when they're dead, to prevent continuity. But wow. I'm measuring 0 ohms. Maybe when the cells die, they go to 0 ohms. That's freaking weird.
I just tested this battery and it shows continuity across terminals.
So, okay. That's why I love doing these things. I mean,
To command people.
no, because I learned things. So this is fascinating to me because so I tested this dead battery and got continuity, which I don't know why I wouldn't have expected that, but I didn't. And you just measured the little 1S cell after we cut the leads off to the bare terminals of the cell, and it shows continuity. So apparently, what we learned today is that a dead battery shows continuity.
Right.
Someone in the comments will explain why that is. Because I would expect a dead cell to have resistance or nothing. I wouldn't expect, but there you go. Okay.
I mean, I suppose I could cut back the wrapper a little more to see if it's touching further down, but yours is showing it too.
In for a penny, in for a pound. Let's do it.
All right.
Yeah, just leave the camera where it is. It's fine. But just cut the wrapper back. Make sure you're measuring the actual, like, it's not touching or something. By the way, guys, if for those of you at home, just cutting willy-nilly into lipo cells with scissors is incredibly irresponsible. The fact that this is just a little teeny tiny, whatever, 250 milliamp hour 1S means that the worst that could happen is probably not that bad. But we're definitely don't emulate this at home with like a 6S, okay?
Good pair of scissors here. We'll just see if it's possibly touching a little closer.
Yeah. Try not to cut into the cell itself and expose the electrolyte. I mean, it probably won't matter. It might just smell a little funny, but we'd like to see if it has continuity before we actually gouge it up.
Okay, I exposed it, and it doesn't, to me, look like the bases are touching. I'll try to put it on camera here.
You should have two tabs. One would be the positive and one would be the negative tab.
Right.
Yep.
And then I can see in the middle, let's see if it'll focus.
I don't know what kind of camera you got there.
Not an up-close camera.
Not a macro camera. That's okay. Well, hold it further away and let's see if we can get it. We can see it a little.
I can see that gray color just is exposed. So, I mean, there's no metal in between the two terminals. I just cut right down the center.
Okay. So here's what we got. We've concluded that a dead battery will measure continuity. I was a little skeptical at first because I thought the only way I would expect that would be if there was some physical damage to the wiring or the cell causing the leads to touch. But we've demonstrated that that's not the case. So the trash can is killing batteries. Why is the trash can killing batteries? That's the next question we have to. We've explained the continuity. The first thing I would want to do is measure resistance between the battery leads on the trash can.
Okay.
And see if there's some kind of a short circuit there.
A few things, as I'm sure people that own the trash can know, it requires two batteries, or the one battery and the jumper.
Mm-hmm.
So at first, I was putting the jumper on the negative terminal, which probably was the wrong one because you probably want the ground to be short as possible. So adding.
I don't know if that matters because current. What is it? Is it Kirchhoff's law? I don't know the answer to that. The current through a circuit is the same at every point in the circuit. So if there's a resistance anywhere in the circuit, it'll cause the same effect, I think. But I could be wrong about that. Regardless.
So and then. So right now I have the jumper put in one of the terminals, and you'd like me to measure the resistance across
That's what I'm proposing. That's what I'm proposing. And we should have high resistance or infinite resistance. And in fact, I'll do the same on one of mine.
All right. Like I said, I'm pretty new to this. I have it.
Yeah.
Which resistance setting should I have it set to? Like 200?
Oh, I mean, it should be very low. So set it to the lowest range. Oh, I see. I can measure. Yeah. I can measure between the negative and the positive. Yeah, that was fine.
All right. It says 1.
That's open. I am getting like 7 kiloohms. So I'm getting non-zero, but it's a very, very large value. Oh, I'm sorry. I told you backwards. I apologize. It should be... So I'm getting 8.4 kiloohms between the negative and the positive wire, which is... I mean, I don't know what would be making that resistance, but it's pretty high. It's not enough to result in any substantial current flow. So we're going to call that essentially an open.
Mm-hmm. So I have it set to 20,000 ohms
Okay.
on my multimeter, and it's reading 10.98.
So you're also getting a large value. You're getting 10 kiloohms. So that tells us that there is not. So one of the things I wondered is there a short circuit in your battery connectors that's causing just as soon as you plug the battery in, it just sort of sucks itself down. The other check that we could do is plug a battery in, and what does the voltage do when you plug the battery in and you don't fly?
It will drastically drop. Like I had a battery drop from like 4.0 to like 2.9 or 2.8
Just sitting there.
just in 10 seconds of being plugged in.
Okay. I got to tell you, that sounds like, I mean, I don't know what we're doing with the multimeter, and it's telling us 10 kiloohms. That sounds like there's a short circuit somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
It really, that there's a defect in the trash can or in the wiring harness that's resulting in a short circuit, because when the battery sags like that, it tells you current is flowing. Because as we, if you leave it overnight with no current flowing, it just stays at whatever 4 volts. So, you don't happen to have a clamp meter by chance, do you?
No, I do not.
That would be lovely.
I would like to show you this
Okay.
microscope shot. I had it in focus earlier, so I'm pretty sure I can get it again.
Sure thing. Ooh. Oh, we're going to look at the circuit board. Nice.
Of how close these solder joints are, I understand these are professional, or machines that make these solder joints, but
well, they're probably soldered by hand.
So these are super duper close, but they do not show continuity across them.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
my worry, which you kind of alleviated earlier, was that when they get heated up, maybe they expand enough to touch. But you said probably not.
No. I mean, any metal will expand slightly when it heats up, but I mean the distance there that's plenty. You're not going to be arcing across that or anything. So that's a valid concern, but you can have them essentially touching, and until they actually touch, because we're only operating at 4 volts. If we were operating at 60 volts, then arcing might start to be an issue, but arcing is just not an issue until they touch. So that's not it.
And from when I first pulled off the canopy, like I said, this is a brand new quad, except for my few test flights. There was a lot of residue right around these terminals, which led me to believe something did happen there. And
what kind of residue?
Like yellowish and right around to the right of the ground. I'm not sure what these pins connect to. There was like a liquidy substance. I'm not sure if that would be flux.
Yeah, maybe it's flux. So worth a try.
Right around those pins to the right of the ground there.
Some people have told me that flux is conductive. I've never had a problem with it, but it might be worth taking a Q-tip with some alcohol and just clean the board vigorously. That would remove any flux residue, and perchance that might fix the issue. So here's what I would say. The fact that you plug the fully charged battery in, and without even arming the quad, zoop, it's down to whatever 2.9 volts. That is the most significant indicator of what's going on. And you've verified that with a multimeter, of course. It's not just that the OSD is reading bad. It's the battery does go down to whatever 2 volts. It does.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's telling us that for some reason current is flowing. That's why the battery's sagging. And then I think what's happening is that they're over discharging. If they're getting below 3 volts, that permanently damages them, and then they're dead. And that's happening 10 or 15 seconds after you plug in. They just go.
And another thing, like I said, I've tried this on 3 batteries now. The first one, I did not recognize the signs fast enough, and now it's dead, and we pulled it apart.
Yeah.
The second 2, I did recognize the signs and disconnected it much quicker. And at first, it did show continuity across the terminals. But after letting them sit for maybe an hour or 2, that went away, and they can hold voltage and charge as normal again.
I'm pretty sure that we shouldn't be doing continuity measurements across a voltage. I'm pretty sure that those continuity measurements are having unexpected results. I mean, we seem to be seeing a pattern, but we really should be measuring voltage on the battery terminals, and that should be what's telling us whether the battery's healthy or not. If the battery voltage is lower than 3.0 volts, then it's been damaged. If it's staying below 3.0 volts, then it's permanently damaged and just needs to be discarded. So
Okay.
the real question is, why do you have some kind of a short circuit? You certainly could. So because you bought from Banggood, I think the best you're going to get is if you hassle them, they'll cut you a refund or maybe give you store credit. It's probably worth your time to try to do that, but that's not actually going to fix your problem.
I've been in contact. They have offered a partial refund, and I'm no stranger to
Yeah.
arguing with online representatives. But
I would take the partial refund, and what I always say about Banggood is, like, you wanted a trash can. Banggood was the only place you could buy it. Usually that works out. This time for you, it didn't. So now you got to say, well, what am I going to get from this situation? If they offered you, how much did they offer you? Like,
they offered me. I asked for. I would send this one back, and they send me a new one, and they offered me $40.
so maybe you could talk them up to $50.
Mm-hmm.
Is it, are they offering you store credit or just like a cash refund?
It said dollars. It didn't say credit.
I would take it. So I would take it. I know that's probably not what you want to hear.
I mean, if I get it flying, that's what I
so
want.
then let's try to get it flying, right? You could take that $40 and buy yourself a new Crazy Bee flight controller and swap the flight controller.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know how much a Crazy Bee is off the top of my head.
I'm sure it's $40 or less or something.
I bet it's about $40, and then you'd be basically square, except for all the time you wasted with this BS. I definitely think taking like a Q-tip and some alcohol and trying to clean the board is worth it. If you want to, you could desolder the battery lead. Desolder the battery lead and just like maybe even put a new one on if you want to try to buy or build a new one. Or maybe if you just inspect the battery lead, you'll find somewhere that it's defective. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But maybe it's the flight controller.
That was my worry that that it could be.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm not super proficient enough to diagnose everything, so swapping parts is probably my
That's
go-to.
The direction. I feel pretty confident that if you were to buy a new flight controller, swap it in, that this problem wouldn't happen again. Not 100% confident, but that's, I think, the route that is most likely to bring you joy. Take the refund, buy a new flight controller. It's relatively easy soldering. I mean, it's small soldering. How are you at all confident with soldering? It's pretty small soldering.
I mess around with my E11, so I've done tiny boop soldering a little bit.
Okay. Oh, you'll be fine then. Yeah.
If I am replacing, do you recommend the same exact board, or would you recommend a different board?
Put the same board in.
Compatibility.
It's possible that there's a better board out there, but like I couldn't guarantee you that it was going to fit or have the right plugs, and there's nothing wrong with this board. That, like, you might go, well, this one I'm pretty sure is the F4, right?
Correct.
It's not the F3. Yeah. So like you might, if you had the F3, you might go, well, I'm going to get the F4, but the F3 kind of has the same problems. This is the F4. It's not really anything better you're going to put in there that I could be sure that was going to work.
Right.
So I'd probably just buy the same thing.
Cool.
All right. Well,
I'm definitely going to give it an alcohol cleaning. That sound like a good start. And
easy. Yeah.
Yeah. From then on, probably just a swap if that doesn't fix it, honestly.
And the test I would do is I would plug a battery in at full charge and immediately notice if it starts to drop and just immediately unplug it. Because once it gets below 3 volts, it's being damaged. It'll never quite be the same again.
While plugging, should I monitor it via the goggles or something, or?
That's what I would do. Either like put the goggles on your face and plug it in, or you might be able to feel the battery getting hot. Or if you have a screen, you would need the goggles on your face. There's various ways to do it. I feel like if we knew more about what the resistance was supposed to be, like I'd be really curious if I were to take the battery leads off and measure resistance directly on the board, would I get a different number? And what would that tell me about where the defect might be? You got 8. I don't get it, because you got 8 kiloohms, 10 kiloohms. You shouldn't be destroying batteries through 10 kiloohms. Maybe that means the short is in the plug itself. Yeah. I'll tell you what, here's what I would do. Clean the residue off with alcohol. That's probably not going to fix it. The next thing I would do is I would replace the battery lead. The best theory is that the battery lead is in some way defective and is short circuiting. I don't know. I can't see how that would be, and we wouldn't be able to see it. But that's my next. And then the third step is replace the flight controller. That's what I. If that doesn't fix it, I don't know what to tell you.
Buy a new quad.
Yeah, buy a new quad. Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's as far as we're going to get today. What do you think?
Your help, man.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate your time making this video and letting me post it, and your patronage.
Of course.
So.
Like I said, your videos have helped me so much from the start, and you're always in the top of the searches. So please continue making videos because I'm going to watch them.
Thank you. Please keep watching them. Awesome. That's going to do it. Happy flying, everybody.